Oh yeah, I've had to fight this so long that I'm memorizing where things are at. And I think that's what annoys HHSC the most, is because I can point out exactly where things are that they are not doing.
A few weeks ago, an old Burleson High School classmate of mine reached out to me to cover his story. It's pretty complex, so I'll try and condense it as much as I can. Basically, according to Jordan Smelly, because of Texas Health and Human Services bureaucracy and his unique medical conditions, he's not able to access the life-changing medications that he needs. I first met Jordan in middle school. I didn't really know him super well, but over the years he's posted in social groups about his health journey and updates about his life. Jordan! Hey!
Hi!
Thanks for having us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so my name's Jordan Smelly. We were actually in the kitchen at my house where I live with my family. I have two extremely rare genetic conditions. I have both Chung-Jansen syndrome and Bardet-Biedl syndrome. As of right now, there are roughly 41 people with Bardet-Biedl syndrome in Texas, and for Chung-Jansen syndrome, I'm one of 5.
So my name is Jeremy Pomeroy. I'm a research scientist at the Marshfield Clinic Bardet-Biedl Syndrome Center of Excellence. I've been working on BBS for about the last 6 or 7 years. The impacts of BBS can be very, very widespread, and they can differ a lot from person to person. The primary features are things like, obesity.
Like, we don't overeat on purpose. It's not like we're trying to bury our emotions.
Extra fingers and toes at birth. That's called polydactyly.
I don't have that.
Abnormalities of the urinary tract, learning disabilities, a type of vision impairment.
Issues with the rod cones in their eyes.
Called rod cone dystrophy, hypogonadism.
And that's also associated with Chung-Jansen syndrome.
That kind of thing. So those are the primary features. And then the secondary features are things like speech delay or difficulties, diabetes, dental crowding, fatty liver, congenital heart defect.
And so it's a very complex situation.
Made even more complex by the fact that the only approved medication is called Imcivree.
But now an FDA-approved drug can help some young adults and pediatric patients with a tech company that developed the drug Imcivree.
I took Imcivree back on March 10th of 2022. And I actually had to have paramedics had to actually come and rescue me.
The thing with Imcivree and other medications that hospitals use is that there is an inactive ingredient that Jordan is allergic to. That is phenol.
And they kept trying to use nebulizer medications to help my breathing, or just another epi injection, but it wasn't enough. So they actually had to start an epi drip so that I would stabilize.
Later, they tried putting Jordan on a medication that has been shown to help BBS, but is primarily for people with type 2 diabetes.
Ozempic, Mounjaro, and then of course the newer one is Zepbound, Trulicity, Rybelsus. And so for me, we actually last February tried me on Ozempic, and I actually had a mild life anaphylactic reaction. Both Ozempic and Imcivree have phenol as an inactive ingredient. And so that's how we kind of figured out I had an allergy to phenol. And so I kind of hate that I learned the hard way. And so if you have an allergy to phenol, it's very important that you have an EpiPen, and it's very important that you let your doctor know.
But there are a few medications that don't have phenol. Mounjaro, Zepbound, and Wegovy. Unfortunately, because Jordan doesn't have type 2 diabetes, he can't get approved.
with Medicaid, you get denied, then you appeal internally, and then they look at it again, at least in my experience. And I know this has been the case for others requesting Wegovy, because Texas HHSC has in the past sent me someone else's hearing decision. The internal appeal is not going to be approved. The denial is still going to be sustained.
Thank you for your testimony.
So with all of these allergies and near-death experiences to the only medication that has been shown to help BBS, Jordan went to explain his situation to Texas Health and Human Services.
So every single time for me, and I've had, five fair hearings in the past year. Every single time the denial got upheld because supposedly HHSC followed policy correctly.
Now, the ruling isn't technically wrong. If a person without type 2 diabetes were trying to get type 2 diabetes medications, these are the protocols they'd be running into. Unfortunately, Jordan and his issues are relatively new.
And I'm kind of the one that kind of pushes and asks all kinds of questions, which I think kind of drives some people at HHSC up a wall because I don't let this go. But it's like, well, I have the right to ask all these questions because you're not giving me a medication that I need. And so the issue pretty much is, people with type 2 diabetes that have insulin resistance, they're getting access. And those with us with Bardet-Biedl and Chung-Jansen syndrome that can't take Imcivree because we would die if we took it, are pretty much told that basically we're not sick enough yet. Thought all this was Christmas.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with Christmas.
My bags. I used to carry my braces around.
Oh.
Yeah, because I was serving on the Texas HHSC Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, but I finished that, and now I serve on the Rehabilitation Council of Texas, which is the council that partners with Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehab.
Jordan's been denied 3 times for 3 different medications. Now, Texas Health and Human Services does have a fraud and fair hearing department for any person on Texas Medicaid that feels they've been mistreated.
Section 1212 basically says the fair hearings officer doesn't have the power to determine whether a policy conflicts with state or federal statute.
Meaning that because the fair hearings officer is an impartial voice, he can't make a decision on the Texas Health and Human Services drug program's ruling. So when someone like Jordan shows up and appeals the decision, the officer has the option to request a legal opinion from the THSSC department so that it will clarify the ruling.
What happened is the fair hearings officer completely ignored my arguments of federal statute and did not submit for a legal opinion, which violates section 1212.
So what can Jordan do? Well, he can appeal to Texas Health and Human Services himself.
There's section 1231 of the Fair and Fraud Hearings Handbook, and that is the appellant's rights. And that's also within 1 Texas Administrative Code section 357.13D. Oh yeah, I've had to fight this so long that I'm memorizing where things are at. And I think that's what annoys HHSC the most, is because I can point out exactly where things are that they are not doing.
Jordan says that a state law states that a representative from Texas HHSC must be present during the fraud hearings to state why the decision has been made. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, there's been a wrinkle with this.
Texas HHSC vendor drug program typically does not show up. When they do not show up to these hearings, they are violating your right.
As you can imagine, Jordan has been getting frustrated with the whole process and isn't getting any closer to having answers.
But it would be nice to get access to Wegovy, actually, because we know I'm not allergic. And then Texas HHSC starts holding Texas HHSC vendor drug program accountable for showing up to fair hearings. And fair hearings officers start holding Texas HHSC vendor drug program accountable to not violating the appellant's rights. So that's kind of the ideal solution if everything goes right.
I did reach out to Texas HHSC and they didn't respond to me for comment, so I will update the story as it goes, as I get more information. So stay tuned, guys.
I think that, that his case too, I hope, has broader implications, so that the next time someone with DBS needs something that doesn't fit in the normal box, it's a little bit easier. He's also, I think, a good role model for other people with DBS.
I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm going to get some extra shots and everything. But,
Okay.
Well, I'll take it off. And real quick, I am running a campaign to keep the BtownTV stories going. It's just basic startup funds for any business that we need to keep a newsroom up and running. So please donate.